So friends, did you see the numbers? More than 7 million people nationwide attended the No King's Day Rally 2.0. Here in our little town of Leesburg, Virginia, more than 5,000 democracy warriors attended the rally. And do you know why that number is so important? Because it's twice as many as attended the No King's Day rally here the first time around. Now, I had the privilege, the pleasure, the honor of addressing the crowd at our No King's Day rally here in Leesburg. And here's a short video of my remarks. But friends, more than 7 million people, and we're just getting warmed up. Because justice matters. Hello, everybody. Y'all are beautiful. So, first of all, I want to thank Will and Indivisible for organizing this each and every time and asking me to speak. Thank you, Will. And then can I please ask you all to give it up for this fabulous band? All right, friends, my name is Glenn Kirshner. As you just heard, I'm a former career prosecutor, started back in the 80s as an Army JAG prosecuting court-martial cases and handling criminal appeals. I left the service. I joined the Department of Justice, where I spent 24 years primarily handling murder and RICO cases in the courts of Washington, D.C. So I'm a rule of law guy. To the extent, I'm competent to talk about anything, it's the rule of law. And the problem right now, as we all know, is Donald Trump and Pam Bondi and Kash Patel are trying to walk the rule of law deep into the woods and shoot it dead, but we're not going to let them. We are not going to let them. And there's a lot of darkness, right? I call it the Trump-induced darkness, and it's everywhere, especially if you watch corporate media, legacy media, you see the focus on it. So I want to do two things today. One, I want to talk about the rule of law, and two, I want to talk about the points of light because they are out there. They are out there. And first and foremost, I don't think we appreciate that the federal bench, the federal judges, the federal courts are points of light. Immediately after Donald Trump was inaugurated for his second reign of terror, right? What was one of the first things he did? He picked up a Sharpie with those tiny little hands of his, and somebody put a Constitution under his nose, a document he has never read, and he took that Sharpie and he tried to cross out the constitutional guarantee of birthright citizenship. And do you know it was on January 23rd, 3 days into his term, that a Republican-appointed federal judge named John Coffenauer stood up, spoke out, stood strong against Donald Trump's lawlessness and unconstitutionality, really in the only way a judge can, by issuing an order, a ruling, a finding, that what Donald Trump did, trying to cross out the guarantee of birthright citizenship, was, quote, blatantly unconstitutional. That was just 3 days into Donald Trump's term, and the federal judiciary began to stand up against Trump's lawlessness and unconstitutionality. And then in recent weeks, what have we seen? We saw a Trump-appointed judge, Karen Immergut, out in Oregon, tell Donald Trump, no, you will not deploy soldiers to the streets of Portland. No, you will not. And what did Judge Immergut write? She said that Donald Trump's assertions are, quote, untethered to the facts. That is the federal judiciary standing up for us, standing up for the Constitution, and standing up for the rule of law against an aspiring dictator. In recent days, what did we have? Judge April Perry, right? She's a judge from Illinois, based in Chicago. And what did she say to Donald Trump? No, you will not deploy soldiers to the streets of Chicago. And she also said this. She stood up, she spoke out in the only way she can in her ruling, in her order. She said, Donald Trump is adding fuel to a fire he started. And we all know he's trying to use it as a pretext to invoke the Insurrection Act, but the judges are not letting him go there. So the federal judiciary is standing strong. And then right after Judge Perry ruled, Donald Trump ran up to the appeals court, the Seventh Circuit Court of Appeals. And not only did the Seventh Circuit Court of Appeals affirm Judge Perry's ruling, but look on page 14, because they uttered the following 5 words that should be a banner, if not literally, figuratively behind all of us today. They said, let me make sure I don't misquote them. They said, political opposition is not rebellion. Political opposition is not rebellion. We don't hate America. We're not communists. We're not terrorists. We actually love America enough to be out here fighting for it. Because political opposition is not rebellion. In fact, if I can tweak those words, and that was from 3 judges in a unanimous decision. Guess who those 3 judges who said political opposition is not rebellion were appointed by? One by George W. Bush, one by Barack Obama, and one by Donald Trump himself. Those are points of light, the federal judges. And not only is political opposition not rebellion, but protest is patriotism. All right, I want to shift. I don't want to overstay my welcome. Will might give me the hook. I want to shift to another point of light, and it is by and large we the people, but it's a specific group of people. It's the grand jurors who are sitting and rejecting prosecutorial abuse and overreach and I always sigh when I say this because the DC U.S. Attorney's Office was my home for decades, by telling U.S. Attorney Jeanine Pirro, no, we will not indict people for felony crimes when the evidence doesn't support it. And here's the one I want to focus on. They presented evidence to 3 different grand juries trying to get a felony indictment against somebody named Sidney Laurie Reed. You may have seen this reporting in the last 48 hours. And the grand jury said to Jeanine Pirro, no, no, and no. Now go away. Bye-bye, Jeanine. Go away. So what Jeanine Pirro did was she brought a misdemeanor charge against Sidney Laurie Reed because she was out there sort of protesting immigration enforcement policies and got in a pushing match, allegedly, with some law enforcement officers. And so Jeanine Pirro basically said, to hell with the grand jury, I'm going to charge her with a misdemeanor, which you can do with a stroke of a pen. You don't need a grand jury indictment to charge somebody with a misdemeanor. Guess what happened not 48 hours ago? A jury, 12 people in a wooden box in a courtroom in Washington, D.C., found her not guilty. And they did it really before they even had time for a cup of coffee after they returned to deliberate. Within 2 hours. They said, not guilty, go away. So you know what that is? That is the grand jurors over and over and over again, multiple grand juries, 8 of them in total. That's now a trial jury being a point of light, being the conscience of the community, standing up against abuse and overreach and misconduct. And just two other things that are points of light. First of all, we have seen these vindictive prosecutions that were brought recently against James Comey, against New York Attorney General Letitia James, and now against John Bolton. More are coming. More are coming. This is going to sound counterintuitive and maybe even a little cruel, but stick with me. I've been saying for a very long time, I can't wait for the first vindictive prosecutions to be brought. Not that I wish that on anybody, but what that's going to do is once judges continue to be points of light and throw these cases out of court on vindictive prosecution motions, or juries throw them out of court with not guilty verdicts, you know what that's going to do? That's going to expose Donald Trump as the paper tiger he is. Because he can threaten his critics, the people he perceives as his enemies, he can threaten them all day long with prosecution, but he can't deliver. Why? Because grand jurors and trial jurors and judges and defense attorneys are exposing his weakness because he doesn't have the rule of law. He doesn't have the facts on his side. He doesn't have the Constitution on his side. And with each vindictive prosecution that gets rejected by judges or juries, Donald Trump's power and his ability to intimidate will be reduced and reduced. And he will fall. His presidency will implode. It will implode. It's just a matter of time. And we're going to help it along. We're going to help it along. And we're going to help it along peacefully. Because that we don't line. We don't say peacefully tongue in cheek. We don't say peacefully with a wink and a nod, like go to the U.S. Capitol, fight like hell, beat the hell out of police officers, but do it peacefully. We don't say it as a punchline. We live it. Y'all are living it right here, and we're going to continue to live it every damn day moving forward. And friends, this is the last point of light, and I promise I'm done. Who thought that a comedian could be the bellwether of just how weak an aspiring dictator, a wannabe king, really is? Let me tell you, this one gives me just as goosebumps because, dear leader, wanted Jimmy Kimmel kicked off TV permanently, and dear leader couldn't even keep Jimmy Kimmel off air for 1 week. That is a true sign of Donald Trump's weakness. He is losing because the people who originally pulled Jimmy Kimmel off the air, Disney, ABC, Sinclair, Nexstar, they listen to Dear Leader. They're like, oh, we're a little concerned he wants Jimmy Kimmel off. But then they said, you know what? Dear Leader doesn't scare us so much. We're putting Jimmy Kimmel back on. Which proves that Donald Trump is really not very good at this dictating thing at all. All right, so let me end with this. We don't hate America, we love America. We love it enough to fight for the future of America, for our kids, our grandkids, your grandkids, and everybody else. Because I'll be damned if this group of imbeciles and incompetents are going to end American democracy. Not on our watch. Not on our watch. So friends, political opposition is not rebellion. Protest is patriotism. So all day, every day, let's roll.
Bring y'all back up. Our last the ceremonies.
USA, USA,